What's up, everybody? I'm Nick Irwin, and this is Beyond the Ballot. And I'm sorry this show is not coming out the day that it was supposed to. It's coming out a little late because I wanted to wait and see if anything crazy happened during the inauguration or anything at any of the capitals, and it did not. Government timing, am I right? Can't just get it together and help me out for scheduling a podcast, for fuck's sake. But I am here. I'm here with William Gadsden this time. It's a great fucking episode. I hope you enjoy it. I'll leave it at that. Before we jump in, though, I gotta say thank you so much to my Beyond the Ballot super supporters, Maxwell, Dave, Dennis, and Chuck. Also, the show is produced by not only me, but Dave, Dennis, and Chuck as well, making the show go round. I really appreciate it. So, without further ado, enjoy the show. Shout out to Voluntary Apothecary. Voluntary Apothecary is here to fulfill all of your beard care needs. They carry beard oil, mustache wax, beard butter, and more. I only use their beard care products, and I love them. You can check out their amazing products at voluntарyapothecary.com, and listeners of the show can take 10% off your order with code BEYOND at checkout.
Professional anarchists.
You guys are getting paid?
All right, we're back again with William Gadsden, the homie, for a late episode of Beyond the Ballot. Very good. I didn't release one this Monday because I figured, well, let's wait for inauguration because government timing is, perfect as usual. They can't just have inauguration day when I'm trying to put out my fucking podcast. So we got to wait till Wednesday because I figured some crazy shit would happen. But no, it's like everything else, a huge nothing burger. You can probably tell by my demeanor that I'm just kind of fucking over it. But there are still things to discuss. But first of all, welcome back on the show, yes. Man. I'm super glad to have you back on. Our discussions are always wonderful. What do you think about all this? Like, what's going on? Is it a pure nothing burger? Is there anything that we're looking at that's interesting, or what?
So I think as we've been watching things progress and all of these events just kind of come out of the woodwork, especially in the last year, not just on the federal level, but you've got the Pro 2A protests in Richmond. You had the storming of the Michigan State Capitol a while ago. These sort of like spikes of major events here and there. I think the inauguration was, the hype train was moving, and then just nothing happened. It was barely a speed bump. Barely a speed bump. I don't think we should take that as a sign that the roller coaster is at an end, because it's not. That was a blip on the radar, but there are many more things to come as this administration takes control. And as you saw today, President Biden and his administration is wasting no time in reversing everything that they can from the Trump administration. This isn't out of the ordinary by any means. Most administrations want to sort of make a point of tearing down the legacy of their previous administration, particularly if it was of a different political party. But the speed at which they have done so is pretty telling for how aggressive I think they're going to be for the next 4 years.
Sure. I think the things that stick out, and these are 17 or is 15 or 17 executive orders that he's signing on day one. I can't remember. I've seen different numbers.
17.
17. Yeah. Okay. And the
17.
The big ones that stick out for me are rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, halting work on the Keystone XL pipeline, and then he was also reversing travel bans, I believe. Those are the ones that really stuck out. I kind of flipped through them, and it didn't seem like too much craziness. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really that surprising about it. He's supposed to reverse the transgender ban for the military. Of course, I think the Paris Climate Accords is a pretty big one. He's got a 100-day mask challenge that's coming up, which that one did catch my eye because there was a lot of talk of a nationwide mask mandate. But this is only going to apply to federal buildings, federal personnel, this sort of thing. So at some point, somebody must have pulled him aside and said, hey, you can't actually mandate for the whole country. You're not a king. So that's somewhat encouraging.
Yeah.
But we'll see how this thing plays out. I'm most interested in seeing what kind of moves he makes against the Second Amendment and assault weapons and high capacity magazines.
Sure.
So I think he's keeping. I think it would be best for us to keep an eye out on the big ticket items, especially because tensions are very much still simmering under the surface. I don't think he wants to move too aggressively on the flashpoints that would almost certainly occur if he goes after some of the more near and dear policy changes that he's talked about.
Right. Yeah. The Second Amendment one, guns in general, I think is probably the big one that I've been thinking about because they've been threatening that since the campaign and probably before the campaign, of course. And we're looking at not being able to find ammo as it is. Like, you can find guns and gun parts and all that, but what the hell is going on with the ammo? And now if they want to heavily tax or require licenses for ammo, it's just going to be so much worse.
Well, and the thing is, and I don't want to speculate too heavily, but rather I don't want to speculate as to why this is, but it's not just ammo. You can't find powder and you can't find primers.
Right.
So for those that are uninitiated, if you do reloading at home, which is basically where you make your own ammunition and you buy all the special machinery and tools and everything else for that, you need gunpowder and you need primer, along with the bullet itself and the case. And those you can still get a hold of relatively easily, but primers, man, primers and powder, you can't find it right now.
Right.
So it's sort of this a full court press, whether it's through just market changes or market pressures, or there's something a bit more insidious going on. It's not just firearms, although, I mean, now I was looking at AR uppers and they're like $500.
Sure.
And before all of this ramped up, I could build a full AR for like $400, the full thing, instead of just buying a barreled upper. So, I'm not sure what is going on with that, but if they try to push some legislation in that direction as well, that's going to be the nail in the coffin effectively. And I'm not sure with these mass shortages how much anyone could really do in terms of a show of force or anything like that. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that anyone actually acts violently, but if you don't have the equipment, you can't even have a show of force. What are you going to do?
Well, not even necessarily a show of force, just for defense. If you're not interested in a show of force with government, anything like that, just holing up and defending yourself if things get really bad. And this whole ammo thing and the powder and the primers, I still haven't gotten an answer for this. I haven't found a single person who knows what the hell is going on. If they're getting completely bought out in this mad rush, why would they not be just churning out as much as they could and meeting the demand? So there's something fucky going on, and nobody knows what, and it's really not being talked about, which is disturbing, other than just like, hey, man, I can't fucking find ammo. Lucky for me, I may have found a little treasure trove. So, but y'all are out of luck if you're not up here where I'm at. So, yeah, that would be assuming I have
lucky
guns.
for me, I have a which you lost all of those in a very unfortunate boating accident.
Yeah, of course.
I'm glad you made it out okay.
Yeah, thank you. It was harrowing.
Yeah, at this point, if you don't have a stockpile, if you don't have a stockpile, or you don't make a regular habit of swimming in a vault full of gold like Scrooge McDuck,
Mm-hmm.
you're probably not going to be able to get a hold of any ammo in large quantities right now.
Mm-hmm.
For most people anyway.
Right. And it's funny too, because the media isn't really touching that at all. You'd think they'd be all over, white supremacists and far right extremists are hoarding ammo. They've bought all the ammo and they're not touching it. And along those lines, the thing that they have been talking about a lot is not only violence at what's it called? I don't know, expected violence at inauguration at the Capitol and whatnot, but at all the state capitals as well. For weeks leading up to, this last Sunday, they're like, oh, there's going to be violence, and they're putting all the state troopers and National Guard at all these capitals and the nation's capital and all this. And no, of course, they're not. There's no admission of them being wrong or anything. They're like live shots from the Capitol now where there is no one. And now they're starting to dive into how much money has been paid out in overtime pay for all the people that were there to protect from all these violent extremists. At least in my area, that's what the joke of a news, mainstream media, local news company has been doing. I've been loving trolling their page too. It's been fantastic. But yeah, that was interesting. It's that there was a great fucking meme of a Fed poking at a Boog boy, or like the Nordic Gamer meme. He's like, go to the Capitol. And it's like, fuck you. I'm not going to the Capitol. Yeah. And it's like, So once again, we see the media trying to drum something up. And this time people were smart enough not to listen.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so what's interesting about that in particular, what I was expecting them to do is if people show up and start something, now they've got justification for continuing to ramp up these anti-domestic terrorism bills and measures. If nobody shows up, or if only a handful of people show up, then they say, see, we were justified, or we were right to mobilize all of these people. So they win either way. I think the fact that it was like crickets across the board, that's why they're kind of burying it right now. But I would not be surprised if enough pressure or attention is brought to the fact that, man, y'all wasted a ton of money.
Yeah.
Then that is when they'll probably roll out but we didn't waste it because they were all scared off. That's why nobody showed up.
Sure. Yeah. They'll always find their fucking spin. They'll find a way to do it. It was interesting. Yeah. The whole thing at the inauguration was really interesting from last night until today. It was some tens of thousands of flags in the place of where the people would have been, and tens of thousands of troops, National Guard, nasty girls, right, out there with no magazines. And
nasty girls.
Fucking, yeah. There was an interesting video of part of the presidential motorcade driving. I think they were heading to Arlington. And there was groups of soldiers with their backs turned to the motorcade, which I thought was interesting. And I haven't seen any reporting on that. And I just sent that to you before this. So, of course, I don't expect you to have any inside information unless you dug something up.
No, so I saw it, and then just before we got on, I saw it floated in a couple of other threads I'm in, some open source intelligence channels, and a couple other chats or group chats that I'm in. But everybody's just kind of going, what does it mean? I don't think it means anything, man. I think, some of those guys might have gotten really ballsy, or they just didn't know what the hell was going on. I can't tell you the number of times that, it's kind of it's a joke. It's a joke in the military. And this is, of course, I was active duty, not National Guard. I can only assume the Guard is probably even more goat roped than we were. But, so, hey, morning formation is going to be at 0700. And then, the chief says, show up at 0600, and then your squad leader or your flight chief says, be there at 0530, et cetera, et cetera. So you end up being there at 3 a.m, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? And then by the time whatever the event is does roll around, you're either falling asleep or you're not paying attention, and it just, goes on by.
Sure.
And then everybody says, all right, well, that's over, go home. The dog and pony show's done.
Right.
I wouldn't put too much emphasis into it, or try to read into it, but it would be interesting if something did come of it, of course, like that sort of open show of defiance.
Mm-hmm.
I highly doubt it.
Right.
The military, even the Guard, is very much very serious about not showing any sort of political bias. If you'll notice, even during the State of the Union addresses, the Joint Chiefs of Staff do not clap. And that's for a reason. It's not because they're trying to be rude of whoever the sitting president is. It's so they don't seem politically swayed in one direction or another.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think it was just, exactly what you said, but they were looking into possible extremists within the group of National Guard that was there. And what did they say? They came up with two, I believe, that had ties to some sort of white supremacist something. Of course,
Yeah.
That's what the headlines were. Who knows? I mean, it's definitely possible with the sample size, but yeah.
Sure.
I have no idea about that.
You got, I think it was just under 30,000 people at the end of the day. I think it was 28 and some change. They actually ended up throwing in almost 1,000 active duty troops that were specialists in CBRN, explosive ordnance disposal, this sort of thing. But in any event, two people with ties to what I can only assume is a more legitimate white supremacy, white nationalist organization, not something like, Patriot Prayer or the Proud Boys, more alt-light than alt-right, if you will. I think in total, they dismissed a dozen. So they basically sent these guys back home because it's like, we can't confirm that you're an active member of any of these groups, but, they might have seen something on these kids' social media pages that they didn't like. Even then, you're talking about over 25,000 people. I think it is concerning that the Biden administration felt that they had to take all of these steps, not only bring in that number of troops for the inauguration, but then, double down a couple of days before the inauguration itself and have the FBI try to sift through over 25,000 individuals for vetting. Right. One of the things I've seen on a lot of my channels, the OSINT channels, are things like, they were looking for membership in TPUSA or YAF. I mean, like, no offense to folks in those organizations, but offense to those folks in those organizations. Y'all are basically like, you're boomers in Zoomer bodies. Like, what could be less threatening? But those are the indicators for being a danger to the new administration. I don't want to be hyperbolic and say loyalty tests and things like that. I don't think the government is nearly as efficient enough at its job to actually do something like that yet. But it's concerning that they felt that those steps were necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so strange watching the show of military force, not only with 30,000, give or take, National Guard there, and then all the symbols of the state out there on display, but there was aircraft mobilized, and I sent you a video a couple days ago of ships off the California coast. I've heard there were ships out off the East Coast as well, but there always are, and for different reasons. But it's just hilarious to me that they have this big military showing when 4 years ago, when Trump wanted a military parade, they're like, oh, no, can't do that. It's too aggressive. It's just pick and choose depending on who's in charge at the time. Yeah.
And that's one of the main things that's very frustrating to me. Even if you wanted to go back and talk about the riot on the 6th, I'm not in the conversations I've had, I would try to be very clear that I'm not talking about whataboutism. I'm not saying, well, what about the months of BLM and Antifa riots? I'm not trying to distract from the riot on the 6th. Both things were bad. Neither can be justified. There were stupid people doing stupid things in both cases. The reason I bring it up in the argument is to point out the gross hypocrisy in the way that the two events have been treated differently by the media, by celebrities, by academia, by politicians, just across the board. So one thing occurred to me that I thought was particularly interesting is this idea that a riot is the language of the unheard. Mm-hmm. You saw that over and over and over again during the BLM riots, despite the fact that these people that started protesting and it turned into a riot, these folks are probably the most heard in the last decade, because you've got the press, celebrities, academia, and politicians all justifying it, excusing it, or actively encouraging it. Those were the most heard people of, I would say, at least the last decade. In the meantime, on the January 6th riots, you've got a group of people, again, not justified, but you've got a group of people, if you want to apply that same standard, these folks never had their voices heard in the courts, because not a single court, including the Supreme Court, actually viewed the evidence. All of these cases were thrown out on procedural grounds. So they never had their voice heard in court. They've been censored on social media more and more for the last several years, so they don't have a voice in the public square. They've been repeatedly chastised and castigated and discarded or made fun of in the press for the last 4 years as, dumb rednecks or, this phobia or that phobia or
white
racist or whatever else. White supremacists. So you're telling me that if a riot is the language of the unheard, then let's apply it to both. Let's look at which is actually unheard. And at the end of the day, those people on the 6th, they are still our countrymen. We still have to share a country with them. We still have to live with them. We still share a society with them. So why do we just instantly dismiss it as domestic terrorism, as insurrectionists, as a coup? No, it was a bunch of idiots doing idiot things. There was a man in a full-body panda costume, for fuck's sake. Can we not pretend that these were bloodthirsty terrorists, please? But my point being, I'm sorry, I went on a bit of a rant here. Go for it. My point is, the hypocrisy in the way that these two events have been treated is absolutely disgusting. And at the end of the day, can we at least hear what these people have to say? Can we give them give them an ear, allow them to bend our ear, and then, if it's all just Q conspiracy nonsense, at least tell them, well, we listened to what you had to say, and we still think you're really dumb. Yeah. Let's move on. Fair. But at least give them that courtesy or that level of respect. That's what they feel like they haven't gotten. And that's why they felt like they were backed into a corner and did that thing that was very, very dumb.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of parallels to be drawn between the different types of riot. I wouldn't even call it a fucking riot at the Capitol. It was just people taking selfies and being idiots. And it's also, we know too, from watching hundreds of hours of footage from cell phone footage and stuff that was taken down from the riots over the summer, generally the protesters who are out there did not start the riots. It was provocateurs, it was set up, or it was a small group of idiots that the people who were out there legitimately protesting told to stop, and then it devolves into nonsense. And with the shit that went down in the Capitol, you got cops opening the gates and waving people in. You have fucking Buffalo Boy with his stupid ass horns, who's not a fucking Viking, for fuck's sake. I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, the Viking guy, because he has a bunch of shitty tattoos. He's a moron. You got these people just going in and stealing random shit and taking selfies, and it's just nonsense. And to call it a violent insurrection, and then to call the riots in which whole city blocks were abandoned by anyone trying to help, from citizens to law enforcement, mostly peaceful. Get the fuck out of here, mainstream media. It's just nonsense. We're back on the media thing again. And it's, they're a huge fueling factor of that. And the other thing to to draw from both of them here is that they're all useful idiots. Useful idiots aren't just for the communists.
Yes.
They're for anybody who's an idiot and can be useful for somebody else's gains, and that's what happens. But I will say, the memes from my insurrection were fantastic. The old lady with
glorious.
the walker and
Absolutely
her water bottle.
primo.
The old lady walking in there with a little American flag, and it's like a violent insurrection. This is an insurrectionist. That one was fantastic. There's so many good ones, but it should be a joke because that's what it is. But I will say, anytime government property gets trashed, I'm for it. You know that, so I'm not going to say it's all a bad thing.
Yeah.
Stealing Nancy Pelosi's podium,
Sure,
go for it. Fantastic. I would have done more if I was in there.
absolutely, yeah, genius.
Yeah. It's like even
of course, there was the rumor that somebody shit on Pelosi's desk.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great.
All right.
But even the burning down of the police stations, the cop shops over the summer, yeah, that's who you're mad at, right? That you're mad at the state, go after the state. Right. That's the whole fucking point of pushing back against the state. And I went over in depth why it's just dumb to riot or break into the Capitol building or whatever in support of your preferred leader or whatnot, but that's coming from an anarchist side. And I know we do see things differently on that. You're one of my few minarchist friends, even though I don't believe that you're an actual minarchist. But I don't think that you would I don't think that you would support people trying to install their leader no matter what the circumstance is. No. And in fact, it wouldn't be a leader, it would be a ruler. No. If you're installing them, they're not a leader.
Right. Yeah, obviously that's not a good thing for anybody to do. I don't care what the circumstances are. And I think that's what a lot of folks are missing when they're looking at this thing. People on the left are screeching about insurrection, and then people on the right are trying to justify it, and they're just talking past each other. But the point that most of these people are missing, I think, is that multiple things can be true at once. We can recognize that these people were very upset and they lashed out based on their emotions. We can recognize that, man, it was pretty dumb. We shouldn't be installing anyone as a leader. And also we should treat the event fairly. At least in the same way that we've treated similar events. And even to that, I would argue that they're not nearly as similar in terms of property damage, in terms of what property was damaged, be it private or public, the number of people killed, the number of people injured. It's not even comparable. So that makes the hypocrisy involved even more egregious. I think in a lot of ways, the media's reporting on the events on January 6th are sort of their last death rattle, because at this point, they don't have Orange Man to report on every night anymore. Like the late night, comedy hosts, they don't have Orange Man jokes to make anymore, as if they were funny in the first place. So I think that's going to be the final tailspin in mainstream media reporting. I mean, they don't have the Trump bump anymore. So what are they going to do? So they just had to ram that one as hard as they could. And they're going to keep playing it out until it peters out. And everybody's like, dude, move on to something else. And then they'll probably move on to fawning over Biden like they did for Obama, with Obama for 8 years. And then people are going to get tired of that. And they're going to move back to new media. That's how I see it playing out, man. I think people are just tired of the constant roller coaster of emotion and being scared about this and that and being angry about this and that. I can, obviously this is anecdotal, but in our little town here that we moved to in rural Tennessee, people are ready to go back to normal. Whether it's in regards to COVID or politics or whatever, people are tired, man. They want to run their businesses. They want to raise their families. People are coming together to, create events in the local community again and get people out of the house and talking to one another and forming a tight-knit relationship with your neighbors and those in your community again. That's what I've been seeing, and I hope similar things are happening across the country. People are just done, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the same things are happening up here in Eastern Washington, and you absolutely called it with what the media is going to do, because I was watching it happen from when the predictions for violence at all the capitals fell off. It was a super fast transition into fawning over everything about Inauguration Day, to the point where they posted it 3 times. They posted Biden and Kamala Harris's speeches 3 times, saying, watch again, on the local news channel and stuff. And then, of course, they had 3 or 4 stories about Lady Gaga and her outfit and her singing and whatnot, which fantastic memes, and also disturbing parody there, too, between her and the Hunger Games, man. That was Elizabeth Banks in the Hunger Games. She's wearing the same red skirt, black top with it's not the what I don't remember what the fucking bird from the Hunger Games is. She had a dove on her, but it's in the same spot and everything. It's like, you got to be kidding me. This is just a joke at this point. And it's a fuck Lady Gaga too with her. I appreciate shock artists. I like that kind of stuff. No matter what genre it is, I find it fascinating and very interesting as far as musical art goes. But, I don't give a fuck if she's going to sing the national anthem or speak at the UN or something. Like, she doesn't know shit about any of that. Like, it's just
right.
It's nonsense. It's just so infuriating to watch people fawn over a celebrity. It's that big club that we're not in at a fucking inauguration for another warmongering fucking moron, just like every 4 years, from an anarchist perspective. But yeah, I've been trying to put together a really good Lady Gaga Biden meme. I haven't quite gotten it. So if you guys follow my pages on social media, you'll see that. But anyways, yeah, it's just weird, the show that's happening, and it would be interesting if we went to a Hunger Games scenario. That'd be kind of fun. That'd be more fun than shitty pandemic.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would at least be more interesting. I think a lot of it, especially the media, is treating it the way they are. A, because they don't have Orange Man anymore, and B, because this is in so many different ways a return to in their minds, the golden years of the Obama administration. This is, of course, in our minds, this is a return to establishment politics. This is a return to corruption. This is a return to the same people that we've seen going through that revolving door of big tech and big defense and big corporations into government and back. And that's not to say that those things didn't happen during the Trump administration.
Right.
We know they did. But this is balls to the wall, all out, hey, I guess we'll start another war. Yeah. It's been a while, right? It was a nice 4-year break, but we got to add another country to that list. I particularly appreciate the memes where it's Biden's tweet that says America is back or something like that. And then there's a drone with a rainbow flag on the front of it, bombing a Syrian child. And I laugh so I don't cry, because that's exactly what's going to continue to happen. Yeah. It's just putting a spin on it for all of the useful idiots that are here at home. We're still in Afghanistan, we're still in Iraq, we're still bombing another 5 countries, and we don't have a congressional declaration of war for any of them.
Right.
And that's not even counting the amount of money that's being spent, the civilian casualties that are involved, and the fallout for America on the international stage as we continue to pursue this incredibly wasteful foreign policy. It's only going to ramp up.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and those memes have been floating around in different form for months and months and months. It doesn't matter who's in there or what flag is on the fucking drone when it bombs innocent people. It's going to keep happening, and it always comes back to the problem being fucking government. And I don't know if this is a unique opportunity. I think we always have the opportunity to invite people to embrace liberty and personal freedom and being independent from government. But it may be a time now when people feel so betrayed by all of the trust the plan stuff, and nothing happens. To say, hey, make your own plan, for fuck's sake. Like, how many times are you going to follow that carrot off the cliff before you're like, I'm done with this and I need to take a hold of my own life? Like, even people that I'm close with just getting so incredibly scared and frustrated that Trump isn't doing anything and starting to bite on that fucking QAnon bait and be like, oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. They just cannot accept that another Democrat's going to be in office, like they have been flip-flopping back and forth for hundreds of years. And it's just, it's an opportunity to give people some hope and some personal responsibility. But at the same time, I don't know how much I want to associate with QAnon types. I don't want to associate with the people who helped get Biden in from the left side of things and are now saying, Biden, watch your back. We just didn't want Trump. Like that's not what I want either. If you're going to work towards putting someone else in power, no matter who it is, get the fuck out of here. But if you're willing to take that step away and, take control of your own life and realize that's the only way you're going to be okay, then yeah, come on in.
So a couple of things, and I appreciate there's some segues there that I want to touch on. I appreciate the setup. So with the QAnon stuff, I am not joking. There are already, drops or dumps or whatever they call them, that now Biden is in on the plan.
Yeah.
And Trump is a shadow president. I'm not even joking. So if any of your viewers are on Telegram, they need to join the breaking 911 _ chat. Okay. And because it is just stuffed full of boomer QAnon cringe. So if y'all are into that kind of thing, flood it and just troll to your little heart's content.
Yes.
So with everything that's been going on, and I think at the end of the day, we've been very bullish on civil unrest, civil conflict, this sort of thing in our previous conversations. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's gone away at all. I think this was a crappy mid-season episode where they wanted to leave a cliffhanger, but everybody's just like, meh. Yeah, we're just going to keep on that story arc. You know what I mean? It's going to continue. Everyone is just going to kind of ignore what's going on at the federal level now, because say what you will about Trump, he did radiate strength. The man doesn't give a shit. I mean, we can at least observe that energy much and admit that much. Yes, big meme energy. Biden, he doesn't, he wants to please everybody, and he wants to, virtue signal for this and that and the other. It's not going to play well. People aren't going to respect that. People certainly aren't going to fear that if that's what he's going for. So you're just going to still have these disparate factions across the country that are still heading towards where they want to go. And if the two kids in the schoolyard want to fight, the overweight, timid principal isn't going to be able to separate the two.
Sure.
I think right now people are lost, especially Trump supporters. People are very lost. They're looking for guidance. Trump went out with a whimper after 4 years of being a bull in a china shop, and they're going, what happened? Right. What do we do now? What's going on? And I talk to a lot of these people almost every day in my local community, and I'm trying to encourage them to build on these events that people are throwing. It might be like a movie in the park, or the local church is having a potluck, or whatever the case may be. Go to those things, get to know your neighbors, get to know the other people in your community. And hey, man, if you're feeling froggy, set up some, let's not say parallel economies, but go to that farmer's market, make those connections where it's not just, I'm going to go to the farmer's market on Saturday and buy eggs, and I'm just going to do it, rinse and repeat. Make those connections with those farmers, with your local producers, with your local cottage industry folks, and say, that's my guy for produce. That's my guy for dairy. That's my guy for meat. And make those transactions face to face, make those transactions directly with the producer. And
Absolutely.
that's one way that not only can we strengthen our communities, and bring real unification, not like whatever BS Biden's trying to talk about, while the rest of the left is calling for GOP blood.
Mhm.
That's real unification. That's real knitting together of a community. And as an added bonus, you're probably paying less for a superior product.
Yes.
And you're starving the machine.
Yes.
I don't see anything wrong with any of those things.
Oh, it's
But
fantastic.
we need to put in the footwork to make that happen.
Absolutely. 100%, man. Couldn't have said it better. I wanted to go back to what you said, that people think that this is just going back to the Obama golden years. I've heard that from so many people. Like, oh, it's just Obama 2.0. I could not agree. I could not disagree more. First of all, it's never going backwards when it comes to government. They're always going to keep taking more. They're always going to increase the national debt. There's always going to be more just nonsense from government all the time that's not going to benefit you. And I don't even necessarily mean in the way that, oh, we're going to be full-on communist. I don't think that. I think, of course, it's going to be a progressive heyday.
Right.
But it's definitely not, milquetoast Obama years either. It's not the same person. It's never the same person in that sense. And as far as what Biden wants, I don't think he knows what he had for breakfast most mornings. I'm a little convinced with that conspiracy that it's just Kamala that's going to be in there in not too long. Because watching a lot of Biden's exits after his speeches and stuff, he doesn't even know how to get off the damn stage. It's very weird watching that stuff. But yeah, I don't think it's another Obama administration at all. He's definitely not Obama.
That's fair. I think you would have to look at not only the man himself or the woman as soon as she steps out of stage left there. It's the people in the cabinet, and it's the policy positions that they will be pursuing. I think you're right. It is always different in a lot of different ways. I think the overall projection for policy is similar. It is a different person. The Overton window has certainly moved in the last 4 years. I think the general direction that they're trying to take it, as far as corporatism, as far as corruption, establishment politics, I think the people in Washington, especially in Congress, hey, the GOP, man, McConnell, Lindsey Graham, you've got all of these people that are just as much swamp monsters as most of the old guard in the Democrat Party. I'm sure they are happier than a pig in shit to have somebody back in there that's going to do what is best for them, not the American people. And I think that's what sorry, my dog's freaking out.
It's all good.
That is what a lot of the folks have in mind, whether they think it's a good thing or a bad thing when they think about returning to that golden age.
Well, I think a lot of the policies being proposed, if they're true, are much more extreme. The one that comes to mind is supposedly AOC saying that government needs to fund deprogramming of white supremacists. And even if it's not, it's a hard thing to get behind, because you sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist in today's climate, I guess, when you talk about this stuff. But if that were a thing that could happen, could even come close to happening, that means that the government has full control over definition of white supremacists and their brains if they get their hands on them. Right. And full on brain, like, what the fuck? That is scarier than I think anything Obama even suggested, or anybody around Obama at the time did, that we're moving towards that thing being something acceptable for someone in Congress to propose. Yes.
So that is, at the end of the day, I think that's AOC throwing red meat to her, 6 million or 7 million Twitter followers, whatever it is. We know that she doesn't give a shit about the people that she's supposed to be representing in her district.
Right.
She's an e-celeb politician. I think she's throwing red meat in the same way that there's a Representative Cohen out of Memphis that is pushing a bill that would remove the Electoral College from the Constitution. Just on its face, to amend the Constitution, you need an amendment.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what he thinks he's going to accomplish. I think it's a dog and pony show. He's throwing red meat to his base. They want to gin up enough fever and support and things like that so that they can stay in office. They're not actually expecting to pass these things.
Mm-hmm.
What is concerning, as you point out, is that nobody's really blinking at that.
Right.
Like you want to take 75 million people that voted for Trump, Americans, and do what with them?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
put them on lists.
Just the fact that, but again, yeah. And this is, again, the difference in coverage. Q conspiracies, I think rightly so, got called out as insane and, hilarious at best, if not somewhat concerning because of how tightly people cling to them. But no one's calling people like AOC saying things like that out. How is that any less of a conspiracy theory, especially when it's somebody that's at that level of politics?
Right.
What is more concerning to me, much more concerning to me, are the steps that have been taken by the left, especially in big tech, since the events of January 6th. So you've got, Twitter, the Twitter purge, the Facebook purge, YouTube, et cetera, and then going a step further and pressuring unrelated social media platforms and companies to run their companies the way that they want them to.
Mm-hmm.
That's concerning.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all of this is continuously propelled by the media coverage, by politicians. So what I was talking about before, how people on the right, or certainly Trump voters, Trump supporters, already feel like they don't have a voice in the public square. And that was before January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Now they really don't. They went to their corner, they went to Parler, and you couldn't let them have that either. What do you think they're going to do? And then you have politicians like AOC, and there's another congressperson that's calling for similar expulsion of duly elected Republicans in Congress. So now you've run these people out of the town square. They don't have a voice in the courts, and now you want to literally remove the people that are representing them in the federal government. Right. It's like they're asking for something extreme to happen. And at what point, I'm not suggesting an answer to this question, but at what point is violence justified on their end?
I think it would be much further down the road. Yeah. That's all I could say is that it would be much further down the road. When people are pushed to that point, it's when that line is crossed. Yeah. It is, as we've been saying, still ripe for secession in the U.S. And I am thinking about it right now. Like, if we're stuck with having to ally with QAnon believers and former Trump supporters to secede, I don't know that's not going to taste very nice. But there have been two representatives here in Washington that reintroduced a bill to split Washington and make the state of liberty again, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I talked about on my last show with Andrew Cosgrove something that Dave Smith brought up on part of the problem, and that was with full Democrat control of the House and the Senate and the executive branch is a recipe for totalitarianism and a pushback on totalitarianism when one side has much more control than the other. And I wanted to pick your brain on that. And what, if any, is there even a Republican Party left, or is it Trump supporters and swamp monsters who aren't really Republicans? Because it seems fractured to me. It seems like at the end it just broke.
Yeah, and before I answer that, I want to be very clear with your audience. I had originally predicted that the Democrat Party was not going to survive 2020. Mm-hmm. I thought Trump was going to win. I thought the divide within the Democrat Party was going to be even deeper because they got their asses kicked. I could not have gotten that any more wrong. And so I want to be I want to be honest and admit that openly. I think it's actually going to be the other way. I think the GOP has been gutted. I think they saved some face. They won 10 or a dozen seats in the House. They had a pretty firm hold on the Senate until the runoff in Georgia. But I think losing the White House dropped morale so low that I think that probably did affect the outcome of the Georgia runoff election. And then that was just kind of the nail in the coffin, because now it's like, well, and then you have McConnell and a lot of other Republicans that are turning their backs on Trump at the last minute as a result of the events on January 6th. I think at this point, most Republicans are disenfranchised. They feel disenfranchised, I should say. They are certainly disillusioned. Trump has floated the idea of starting a Patriot Party. I think.
I have to comment.
First of all,
on
what
that.
are your thoughts on that? Because that's kind of a totally separate topic.
So
please.
I saw the Patriot Party, and I got to find this because I was like, I Googled it to see what I could see that Trump said. And one of the first things that came up is the Patriot Party already existed from the 60s to the 80s. And it was an American socialist organization that organized poor rural whites in the Appalachian South and Pacific Northwest. And I lost it. I haven't laughed that hard in days.
That's amazing. That's incredible. I had no idea.
Oh, so good.
Well, so let's say that he did, and irony aside, because hysterical, but let's say he did. This would certainly not be like the formation of the Tea Party. So if we were to compare the two, which I think that's something that a lot of people can look at in recent history and say, oh, would it be like that? No, it would not. It would not be like that. The Tea Party had a large groundswell, a grassroots effort, because they were pissed off about what was going on. They won a few seats. And so if the Tea Party's here, the GOP kind of came over and they were like, okay, we're getting pulled more to the right by the Tea Party. They reabsorbed them and then just moved right back over to establishment.
Yep.
If Trump were to create his own party, I think the GOP would be completely gutted. Gutted. You might have the Lincoln Project and the Never Trumper folks, and that would be about it. And the vast majority of that voting power would move over into this new party. I don't know personally what I think about that yet. It would certainly be a very interesting turn of events, but the time is ripe for something like that to happen because there's so much in motion. There's so much dismay and frustration and fear, going around.
I could see it happening, and him, absolutely destroying the Republican Party with that. At some point, Mitch McConnell, everybody who just decided to side with the Democrats, it's just like switch the letter by your name. Who fucking cares? Like we can see what you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
But the other thing that comes
You're not
to mind,
fooling anyone.
Yeah, exactly. You fucking turtle. But the other thing that comes to mind is. It's just like if this happens and it becomes a successful party and Republicans are done for, that's a nail in the coffin for the Libertarian Party too. Like fucking how bad can you keep messing up and not pulling these people for that are just getting the football pulled out from in front of them every 4 years, and you can't swing them over to the Libertarian Party. You pick the most milquetoast, boring presidential candidate ever, with a pretty decent field of people. And you should have had Spike running at the head of that whole thing because everybody fucking loves Spike Cohen. I'm an anarchist. Yes. I give him shit about him saying he's an anarchist and running for vice president, and I still fucking love the guy. But they fucked up. Yeah. And if they can't pull their shit together and stop a Trump Patriot Party, it's like you might as well just give up. Like, either be anarchists or go join the Democrats or the Patriot Party because you're not doing anything with the Libertarian name.
Right. Well, and I've got on record before, I don't mind admitting that I think the LP is a total joke. I will not put any time or effort into that. I think my time and effort is best spent elsewhere. But to your point, if the traditional GOP party as we know it is totally gutted, then you would think that groups, not just the LP, but parties like the Constitution Party, or, there's a list of parties that win less than 1% of the vote every 4 years. They'd be like, yes, come over here.
Mm-hmm.
We got a home for you.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I think Trump has outgrown any party. If he started the Patriot Party, it would be him.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, Trump, the Trump Party, which that brings about an entirely different slew of issues. I think it's dangerous to worship any person, especially any political figure, and populist or reality TV star or whatever. Trump is a political figure now.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when Trump goes away? Let's say he just retires to Florida or whatever. Are those people going to get fired up by the Libertarian Party? No. What are they going to ever go out and vote again? I don't know.
No, they're going to get fired up by the next, big blowhard that comes in that is far enough right for them that will most likely be much more dangerous than Trump was. That's the only thing. Like, it's extremism was, accelerated, and that's the only thing that'll keep happening is they'll latch onto the next most extreme thing. So, yeah, Patriot Party, bad idea. Worshiping Trump, like you said, that's a bad idea. And, I got to say, too, because we're near the end of the time that I have for this, fuck you, Trump, for your fucking stupid list of pardons when Ross Ulbricht is still sitting in jail, and Julian Assange and Edward Snowden and people who deserve to be pardoned, and you're pardoning fucking Lil Wayne and all this nonsense. Go fuck yourself. Stay in Florida and stay fucking retired. Makes me angry.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. That was him leaving with a whimper. You had one last chance to flip the middle finger to the establishment and the deep state and all these people that you've been talking about fighting against for the last 4 years. You could have pardoned some of those people that stormed the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
What a big middle finger that would have been. You had one last shot and you totally screwed it up. So imagine all of those Trump supporters that have been arrested. Obviously, I don't think any of them have been convicted for the Capitol riot yet. But you've got Proud Boys that are sitting in prison on federal charges, whatever else. All of those people that followed that man for 4 years and risked their livelihoods, and he just takes a big steaming dump on their chest.
Yep.
What a piece of shit.
It's classic Trump.
I was very disappointed.
He doesn't give a fuck about anyone but himself and looking good himself. And that's exactly what we saw.
Right.
It's infuriating.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He became what he sought to destroy. Feel free to make a meme out of that one.
Yes.
In many ways, he became the establishment. He became, your average politician that's only looking out for his interest.
Mm-hmm.
What a terrible, terrible way to end what could have been a pivotal moment in American politics.
Absolutely. Man, I know you're busy with stuff in life and whatnot. Are you still doing any shows or anything that you want to plug before we get out of here?
I will be soon. So with Liberty Bites, I know I haven't been on for a little while on the Think Liberty podcast or Think Liberty Network, but I will be coming back. I'm going to be starting from scratch, and I'm hoping to syndicate that show with some of the folks in the local area here, some local figures. So we'll be starting at the bare bones, the philosophy of liberty, how that has manifested itself in things like the U.S. Constitution, and how it manifests itself in our daily lives and what we can do as individuals to further strengthen that.
Fantastic. And where can they find that when you're back up?
So it'll be on the Think Liberty Facebook page as long as we're still around. And of course, if you look on Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes, Podbean, name it, we're on there. Just look for Think Liberty Network.
Fantastic. Guys, keep an eye out for that. You're going to love hearing everything William has to say. I appreciate you coming on, brother. It's always a pleasure, and we'll keep talking. Thanks, everybody, for watching the show. You know where to go. Patreon, at Beyond Ballot Pod on all the evil tech giant companies, and at Non-Voting Nick absolutely everywhere, even places that aren't evil. So, awesome show. Thanks again, and we'll see you all later.
Professional anarchists.
You guys are getting paid?